Hello and welcome back to Rec and Rule. My name is Brian. So I wanted to give you guys a quick overview of a game that really interested me towards the end of summer. I wish that I had found out about it earlier in summer so that I could hopefully kind of put a dent into maybe painting and maybe even playing it. So I first saw this game on, there's a channel called Guerilla Miniatures Games, I think, run by Ash Barker. Ash is a great guy, does a lot of Let's Play type of videos, review videos as well for different systems and different accessories for different systems. But it's also very dangerous because you're going to want to get into playing some of these games. And my wife and I, we had a baby back at the end of March, so I've been watching a lot of YouTube while feeding the baby, while trying to keep the baby calm, etc. And this is a game that really intrigued me for a few reasons. For one, it seems like it plays quick. It seems fun to play, and then beyond that, the creator of the game, Sean Sutter, it's very clear that he's put a lot of passion into what he does, and it's very much kind of like a homegrown operation. He does the art, he does the sculpting, he does art on the cards that go with the game. As near as I can tell, he's the one who's sending everything out. Like he's kind of doing the logistics of the game as well. I believe that another person named Malev, Malev, if I'm not mistaken, is also supplementing a little bit as well. I think doing some additional work with the rules. I think that he has a solo mode in mind. And Malev, I'm not quite sure about pronouns, so I apologize if there's any um, mistakes that I made with that right there. I'm actually not sure if he is the correct word to use. But anyway, getting into this game is exceptionally easy. And I think that this would be a great kind of first miniatures game if this is something that has intrigued you, but you've not made the jump into that type of game yet. So you can get started with just this right here, which is the two-player starter called Storms of Guerilla. Like you can see again, fantastic art, which Sean does. And inside here, there's a starter rule book, which will kind of get you going and get you through like a kind of campaign that you play through. And I think it could branch in different ways. So I think there's also replayability with that as well. In addition to that, there are tokens to play the game. There are, let me just get those out so you can see. There we go. Okay, so there are tokens, and again, Sean does the art for the tokens. They've got character to it, which is pretty neat. And there's also a measuring tool, which is a lot more convenient to use than a tape measure. Get this away so that I don't forget to do it later. So when you play, there are two sides, I believe, called the advocates and the adversaries. So for the advocates, those are more or less the good guys. I'll show you the minis right here. So this is kind of like a thief rogue type of character. There we go. And then you also have kind of like an elven wizard, mage, magic user. You have kind of like a more like a sword and board type of fighter. There's a bit of like a Middle Eastern type of aesthetic to it, which is cool. And then you have a dwarf with a gun. What really caught my attention though were the adversary designs. They look pretty neat. And so you've got a kind of like reptilian, almost like a Roman aesthetic going on right there. You have a warthog pig type of character, big giant greatsword. You have kind of like a skeletal bird, but also a bit of like a plague doctor type of vibe there, magic user. And my favorite, squid are my favorite animal. So you give me a squid wielding multiple knife, kukri type of weapons right there. I am on board with that. Now, all of these minis are metal, and it's kind of like metal's good to start to work with minis for a couple of reasons. but they're also not intimidating metals. So these are all single piece. You don't have to glue any arms on or anything like that. You do have to clean up a little bit of, like, there's extra flashing, like little pieces that are not supposed to be there. You just have to chop off with an X-Acto knife, not a big deal. But like mold lines, I didn't really see any that stood out to me. Which, if you don't know, mold lines are where the way that these minis are made, there's essentially like, there are two molds that are kind of pressed together, and then whatever the material used is kind of put into that mold, and then it's allowed to cool down, and then you've got the metal thing on the inside, and all you do is you take the metal piece, and you can kind of see right here, you glue it to a base. You can see right there, like there's the metal with the plastic base there. I've primed these white to be painted, which I'll hopefully actually get to. I have so many miniatures, so many of them primed, so many of them unpainted, but I would like to get to these. This is going to be a project that my wife and I work on while we are essentially quarantining with the baby. The other neat thing about this is that all of these different miniatures are meant to kind of be like a starting point to branch into like a sub faction that exists. There is kind of like an underwater group of evildoers. There's a group of battle pigs out there. There's a group of skeletal bad guys doing necromancy type of stuff. There's a group of, I think they're called iguans, so like militaristic reptile type guys out there. There's a group of various different gnomes doing shooty type of stuff. I forget the name of this group, but they're kind of like questing for stuff. They're pretty neat. And then you've got like the hippie type of, druid type of faction, and then like a sneaky roguey type of faction. So you can use these as a starting point to get into that, and you can mix and match for each different kind of like alignment as you want to. You want to go a couple of pigs and a couple of reptiles, go for it. And I believe that's how it works. The way that the game is played, so you can see here, this is a character card. 5 tells you essentially how many actions it can take. It uses an action dice system. So here, if you wanted to attack with a dagger, it would cost you 1 die to do that. If you want to entangle, it would cost you a die to do that. If you want to move, this case can move up to 3 inches, you would spend a die to do that. And sorry, let me find the other characters. So here, like for the gnome to shoot her gun, it would cost you 2 dice to do that, right? And I'll kind of go into more of how this is played, hopefully, eventually. Another neat thing is that you can build your team up. Like here, the squid costs 23, and this shows you what type of upgrades it can take. So if you've played X-Wing before, this system is going to be familiar to you, right? So as an example, like the noxious bomb, like this is a potion type of thing. So I think anybody could take a potion, but like here, the shadow glass dagger, right? So here, if you've got that symbol, you can take this, although it also mentions you have to be a rogue. And each of these has a point cost as well. So you build up your team, you figure out what you want to take. And Sean does all the art for all of these different cards, and they're awesome. What really stood out to me, and this is kind of like a moment where I'm on board, like I will support this, I will evangelize for this game, was when I got this is kind of like the full rule book as opposed to the kind of like mini, like first couple of games rule book that you get here. I open this up to start to dig through, and there's a sketch on the inside. I mean, that's awesome, right? So I'm on board now. And as you look through the rule book, it's full color. You've got some like photos somewhere. I just passed one. Or maybe I thought I did. Like there's photos of games in session, but like there's also full art that Sean has done for the game too. There's different scenarios that you can play. There are different environments you can be in. There are wild monsters that could pop up in the middle of the game, and you and your opponent have to deal with it. And I mean, that stuff is awesome. There's the like minis, the games and play type of thing, which I just skipped by and can't get to again right now. Um, there's a setting book out called the Vogelens, and you guys know me, like I want to have everything. I wanted to have all available options to play. I wanted to have all rules available to me, so I jumped on that. And in the second rule book, another sketch, right? So I'm on board with this. Um, this is something that I'm going to continue to play. And I've mentioned this already, this is not intimidating. So if you have been wanting to get into a minis game for a while, but you just feel like there's too much involved, you don't want to play a game where you have to, assemble and paint 40 miniatures to have an army. You can do 4 miniatures and have a force ready to go there, right? Um, if you want to have more than that, then you can get more minis to have more options. You can have different teams ready to go. Uh, just neat stuff. The other thing that makes this a good kind of first entry into miniatures gaming, miniatures wargaming, skirmish wargaming, is the fact that it's played on a smaller area. This is a 2 foot by 2 foot mat by a company that I believe is called Battle Systems, if I'm not mistaken. If you've never seen this before, it's neoprene. People who are card gamers here, the same stuff that's used to make card game play mats. It sticks well to a table, and you can move things around on it, and it's not going to kind of get jammed up there. For terrain, you do want to use terrain, but if you don't have anything available, you can just use something around the house. Okay, my wallet, there's a hill. My mouse, that's a boulder, right? Or if you do want to start to ease your way into some terrain, then you can get something like this. So this is by a company called TT Combat right here. They're based out of the UK, but there are US distributors, so you don't have to import it. This one I did have to import because this specific one was basically sold out everywhere, but it didn't cost me a lot to import. In fact, I think I got this off of their eBay web store. I think I watched it. I put it on my interested list. I think they sent me a discount for it. I'll pause. Give me 1 second. I'll be right back. Sorry, again, we have baby Guerilla home, and she's hooked up to a monitor. If it goes off, I do just have to check. So, like I was saying, there is terrain that you can get that's pretty cheap. This right here is MDF, which is, if I'm not mistaken, basically compressed wood, and it's been laser cut. So I'll pop these out. I can kind of like wood glue it together or super glue it together. Probably would be better. It would hold. It would bond quicker. But this is also modular. Like this can be put together in a couple of different configurations. I can paint it if I would like to, hopefully. This shouldn't be hard to paint. Spray paint it and then maybe do some dry brushing over top should look pretty decent. But this would probably be more than enough to fill up a 2 by 2 foot area. But again, like this is going to be a project that my wife and I will take on. Like we'll kind of create the scenery, paint the minis. We're going to probably order a couple of extra. My wife is liking the gnome so far. There's another one that's on the magic carpet that she's a big fan of. I think that I'm going to get myself some more sea creatures, and we'll kind of go from there and see what happens. Thank you guys for listening to this rambling, but this is something that I'm very impressed by, and the audience that you guys are out there. If you guys are looking to get into a minis game, or if you're into minis games and you're looking to try something new out, I think that this is something that you should definitely look into. I will link to the website for the game. I'll also link to the Facebook group for the game as well. Community is great. They're very helpful. Until then, I'll kind of keep you guys updated as we work on stuff, and maybe eventually, once we have this assembled and painted up, once we maybe have some of these guys painted up, maybe also do some battle reports. We'll go from there. Thanks, guys, and catch you next time.